What happens when a man throws away a diamond for a piece of glass? Marcus Thorne had it all: a brilliant, loving wife, a baby on the way, and a company on the rise. But it wasn't enough. He traded his pregnant wife, Mina, for a younger model, leaving her with nothing but divorce papers and a broken heart. He told her she was a burden he was shedding. 4 years later, Marcus is desperate, his company failing, begging for a buyout from a mysterious, silent billionaire. He walks into that final boardroom meeting expecting a savior, but what he finds is his past. And the woman he destroyed is now the only person who can destroy him. The rain against the penthouse window was a cold, rhythmic drumming, a miserable soundtrack to a life that had suddenly lost its melody. Mina Hayes. No, she was still Mina Thorne. For now stared at the skyline of Seattle, but the city lights were just a watery blur. She was 7 months pregnant, and the weight of the baby boy under her heart was the only thing that felt real. Everything else had just detonated. Her husband, Marcus Thorne, CEO of Thorne Dynamics, was standing by the sleek, minimalist fireplace, his back to her. He hadn't even taken off his $3,000 Tom Ford overcoat. "Marcus, please," Mina whispered, one hand pressed against the tight swell of her stomach. Just look at me. Tell me this is a joke. A sick, horrible joke." Marcus turned slowly. His face, which used to be her entire world, was now a mask of cold impatience. He was handsome, with sharp patrician features and eyes the color of steel. It was a face that charmed venture capitalists and disarmed competitors. Tonight it was aimed at her. "It's not a joke, Mina," he said, his voice clipped. "I'm leaving. The divorce papers will be sent to you by my lawyer, Jonathan Pierce, tomorrow morning." "Divorce." The word came out as a strangled gasp. "Marcus, I'm carrying your son." He actually winced at that, a flicker of annoyance. Don't do that, Mina. Don't use the baby as a bargaining chip. It's unseemly. A bargaining chip. She could feel a hysterical laugh bubbling in her throat, mixing with the bile. "He's our child." "He will be your child," Marcus corrected, finally shrugging off the coat and tossing it onto a white leather chair. He walked to the bar, his movements precise, and poured himself 2 fingers of Macallan 25. He didn't offer her one, not that she could drink. "I will, of course, provide the legal minimum in child support. I'm not a monster." Mina felt the floor tilt. This wasn't happening. This was the man who just 6 months ago had wept with joy at the first ultrasound. The man who had built his entire company, Thorne Dynamics, from a single algorithm she had helped him design in their tiny college apartment. She had been his partner in everything. "Why?" she finally asked, the one-word question loaded with 5 years of shared history. Marcus swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "Because I'm tired, Mina. I'm tired of this." He gestured vaguely around the multi-million-dollar apartment. "I'm on the verge of something huge. Thorne Dynamics is about to go global. I need a partner who can keep up, who excites me. Someone who reflects my success. And I don't." Her voice was small. She hated how small it sounded. He let out a sigh, the kind one reserves for a difficult employee. "Mina, look at yourself. You've let yourself go. This pregnancy, it's all you talk about. You've lost your fire. You used to be a brilliant architect, and now you're just a vessel." Each word was a physical blow. She clutched the back of the sofa, her knuckles white. "I'm growing our family, Marcus. The family you said you wanted." "I wanted the idea of it," he said, downing the scotch. "The reality is messy. It's a burden, and I can't afford any burdens right now." That's when she saw it. On his phone, which he'd left face up on the bar, a new lock screen image. It wasn't the photo of them in Cabo. It was Marcus grinning on a yacht, his arm wrapped tightly around a woman with impossible legs and bright blonde hair. Mina recognized her instantly. Serena Vance, the 22-year-old model who was the new face of Thorn Dynamics' marketing campaign. "Her," Mina breathed, pointing. "You're leaving me." For her, Marcus had the decency to look momentarily flustered. He snatched the phone. "Serena understands me. She understands the demands of my world. She's an asset, Mina. She looks good on my arm, and she doesn't demand things from me. She doesn't have all this need. I need my husband." Mina finally shouted the dam of her shock breaking. "I need the father of my child to not abandon me for a child." "She's 22, Marcus snapped, "and she's more of a woman than you've been in months. And this is done." He walked to the door. "I've already packed a bag. It's in my car. The driver is waiting. My lawyer will be in touch. I suggest you get your own." He paused his hand on the polished steel door handle. "I'd also suggest you move out quickly." He added, his voice devoid of all emotion. "This apartment is tied to the company, and I'll need it for corporate functions. You can go back to your sisters, I suppose." And with that, he was gone. Mina stood in the echoing silence of the penthouse, the rain lashing the glass. She looked at the empty Scotch glass on the bar, at the indentation on the chair where his coat had been. It was as if he had never existed. She slid down the back of the sofa until she was sitting on the cold marble floor. The baby kicked a hard, sudden jab under her ribs, as if he too could feel the sudden icy void. "It's just us now," she whispered to her stomach, as the first real agonizing sob tore itself from her chest. "It's just us." The humiliation was a physical sour taste that lingered for weeks. Moving out of the penthouse was a blur of sympathetic turned pitying looks from the building's concierge. Marcus, in a final act of petty cruelty, had his assistant, a sharp-faced young woman named Janice, oversee the move, ensuring Mina took only her personal effects. She ended up in the spare bedroom of her sister Chloe's cramped two-bedroom apartment in Bellevue, across the water from the glittering prison of her old life. The room was painted a cheerful but nauseating lavender, and smelled faintly of Chloe's cats. Chloe, ever the pragmatist, was furious. "He's a monster, Mina. A sociopath. He didn't just leave you. He tried to erase you. That algorithm. You wrote the core code for that. You have a claim." But Mina was too broken to fight. She was 32 years old, heavily pregnant and unemployed. She had given up her own promising career as a senior software architect at Microsoft to help Marcus build Thorn Dynamics from scratch. She was a co-founder in spirit, but her name was on none of the incorporation documents. Marcus had insisted it was cleaner to keep it all in his name, that it was all for their future anyway. She, in her love-blinded haze, had agreed. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Marcus's lawyer, Jonathan Pierce, was a shark in a bespoke suit. He painted Mina as a gold digger, despite the fact she'd been with Marcus when he had nothing but student debt and a bad haircut. "Mr. Thorn is offering a one-time settlement of $50,000. Pierce said, his voice smooth as polished stone in a sterile conference room. "In exchange, Ms. Hayes, He made a point of using her maiden name, will waive all future claims to Thorn Dynamics, its assets, and any future earnings. Mina's legal aid lawyer, a well-meaning but overwhelmed woman named Sarah, scoffed. That's insulting. We're talking about a company valued at over $50 million, and there is the matter of the child. Pierce smiled a thin, reptilian expression. Mr. Thorne is prepared to meet the state-mandated minimum for child support. The $50,000 is generous. It's a fresh start fund. If you fight this, we will drag it out. We will countersue for emotional distress. We will prove Ms. Hayes was a destabilizing factor, and her condition made her erratic and unfit. Take the deal, Ms. Hayes. Mina looked at her sister, then at her own trembling hands. She had no money to fight. A protracted legal battle would last longer than her meager savings. She was about to give birth. "I'll take it," she whispered the words, feeling like ash in her mouth. 2 months later, Liam Hayes was born. He was small, perfect, and had Mina's deep blue eyes. The moment the nurse placed him in her arms, the fog of her despair began to recede, replaced by a fierce protective instinct that was as sharp as steel. This tiny 7-pound creature was her new center of gravity. Marcus did not come to the hospital. He sent a comically large teddy bear with a Thorn Dynamics logo stitched onto its paw. Mina had Chloe throw it in the dumpster. Life became a rotation of 3 a.m. feedings, diaper changes, and staring at her dwindling bank account. The $50,000 after paying for the hospital bills and her legal aid was evaporating. She was a ticking clock. When Liam was 3 months old, a letter arrived. It was addressed to Ms. Mina Hayes at Chloe's apartment. The envelope was thick, creamy cardstock with the return address of a law firm she'd never heard of, Harrison and Stone, LLP. "Please, God, don't let it be Marcus again," she muttered, tearing it open with one hand while balancing Liam on her hip. The letter was brief. It was not from Marcus. It was from the estate of a Mr. Arthur Pendleton. "Dear Miss Hayes, we are the legal representatives for the estate of your great-uncle Mr. Arthur Elias Pendleton. Mr. Pendleton passed away peacefully last month. You have been named the primary beneficiary of his estate. We request your presence at our offices at your earliest convenience to discuss the details of the bequest." Mina stared at the name. Arthur Pendleton. She hadn't seen him since she was 10 years old. He was her grandmother's eccentric, reclusive brother, a man who lived in a sprawling, dark house on Orcas Island and was rumored to be difficult. Her family had mostly forgotten he existed. "A beneficiary," she said to Chloe, who was reading over her shoulder. "He probably left me a box of old books." "Hey, we can sell them," Chloe said, ever practical. "Go. What have you got to lose?" The next day, Mina bundled Liam into a borrowed car seat and drove to the offices of Harrison and Stone. They were in an old, prestigious building downtown, the kind with polished mahogany and brass fixtures. She felt small and shabby in her maternity jeans and a faded t-shirt. She was ushered into a vast, book-lined office. A man in his late 60s with a kind face and sharp, intelligent eyes stood to greet her. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Robert Harrison. A pleasure. And this," he said, smiling warmly at Liam, "must be the newest edition." "This is Liam," Mina said, her voice shaking slightly. "Mr. Harrison, I think there's been a mistake. I barely knew my Uncle Arthur." "There's no mistake," Robert Harrison said, gently gesturing for her to sit. "Arthur was a very specific man. He wasn't fond of, well, most people. But he was fond of you." "Me," He sent me a logic puzzle book for my 10th birthday. That was it. He remembered that, Harrison said, sitting opposite her. He said you were the only one in the family who ever solved the puzzle on the inside cover. He's been following your career. He admired your work at Microsoft. He was, to put it mildly, furious when you left to support your husband's venture. He called Marcus Thorne a fool in a hurry. Mina's jaw dropped. Arthur, Mr. Harrison continued, was not just difficult. He was particular. He was also Miss Hayes, the founder of Penned Data Solutions, which he sold to IBM in 1994 for an astronomical sum. He spent the last 30 years living quietly and managing his investments. He slid a thick portfolio across the desk. Arthur had no children. He despised the rest of his family, but he saw his own mind in you. He has left you as the sole beneficiary, his entire estate. Mina opened the portfolio. Her eyes scanned the summary page, but the numbers didn't make sense. They were just strings of zeros. I don't understand, she whispered. What is this that who, Mr. Harrison said, is the controlling interest in a private equity firm, Pendleton Capital Ventures. It also includes a diversified portfolio of tech stocks, real estate holdings, and liquid assets. To put it in layman's terms, Ms. Hayes, your great-uncle has left you an estate valued at approximately $2.8 billion. Mina looked at the sleeping baby in her arms. Then she looked at the number on the page. Then she looked at Mr. Harrison, and for the first time in 6 months, she laughed. It was a wild, sharp, disbelieving sound that filled the stuffy office. The thread she had been hanging from wasn't a thread at all. It was a steel cable. The next 6 months were a blur of lawyers, accountants, and sleepless nights. But this time, the sleeplessness wasn't just from a crying baby. It was from a mind whirring back to life, absorbing information at a speed that stunned the old guard board of Pendleton Capital Ventures. Mina Hayes, Billionaire, was a title that felt like a costume, but Mina Hayes Architect was who she had always been. She had designed complex software systems. A multi-billion-dollar investment firm, she learned, was just another system. It had inputs, outputs, protocols, and inefficiencies. And Mina was very, very good at finding inefficiencies. She did not go on a shopping spree. She did not buy a penthouse. Instead, she bought a sensible, secure brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, hired a discreet and highly qualified nanny named Maria, and promoted Robert Harrison from estate lawyer to CEO of Pendleton Capital, with one caveat: he would be her mentor. I don't want to be a passenger, Robert, she told him, bouncing a giggling 6-month-old Liam on her knee in the new sunlit office she'd had built in her home. I don't want to be a Hayes heir who just cuts ribbons. Arthur left this to me because I could solve a puzzle. This is the biggest puzzle of all. I want to run this. Harrison, who had been bracing for a flighty, grieving woman, found himself facing a focused, ice-cold intellect. He was delighted. Very well, Madam Chairwoman, he'd said, a smile playing on his lips. For the next 4 years, Mina worked. While Liam slept, she studied market analysis, leveraged buyouts, and corporate law. She learned the difference between a predator and prey in the corporate world. She learned to speak the language of power, a language that was all subtext and implied threat. She cut her long brown hair into a sharp, efficient bob. Her wardrobe of faded jeans was replaced by bespoke architectural pieces from Acris and the Row. She wasn't hiding herself. She was armoring herself. She proved to have an instinct for the market that was almost supernatural. It wasn't magic. It was logic. She had been a coder. She saw the patterns. She saw which tech startups were built on hot air and which were built on solid code. Pendleton Capital Ventures, under her silent guidance, became the most aggressive and successful tech investment firm on the West Coast. She became the Seattle Shadow, a mysterious new player who never appeared in public, but whose name on a term sheet made markets move. And all the while she was a mother. She was there for Liam's first steps. She was there for his first day of preschool. She read him Goodnight Moon every single night. Her life was a fortress of two halves, the soft, warm love for her son, and the cold, precise ambition of her work. One person, however, was not having a good 4 years. Marcus Thorne. On the surface, his life was perfect. He and Serena Vance were the darlings of the Seattle social scene, their Instagram feeds a curated fantasy of polo matches, charity galas, and trips to St. Bart's. Serena now. Serena Thorne was a lifestyle influencer. But behind the filters, Thorne Dynamics was bleeding. Marcus had done exactly what Arthur Pendleton had predicted. He was a fool in a hurry. Flush with his initial success and desperate to fund his and Serena's lavish lifestyle, he had expanded too fast. He'd poured millions into flashy marketing campaigns, all starring Serena, of course, and a disastrous new product line of smart jewelry that was buggy ugly and a critical flop. He had taken on massive debt to fuel the expansion. He had borrowed against the company's future, convinced the next big hit was just around the corner. Now the creditors were calling. The interest payments were crippling. Thorne Dynamics, once valued at $50 million, was now a company drowning in $70 million of debt, desperately trying to sell itself before the banks seized its assets. On a rainy Tuesday in March, 4 years after he had walked out on his pregnant wife, Marcus Thorne sat in his sterile, glass-walled office, his head in his hands. "Jonathan," he barked into his speakerphone at his lawyer, "tell me you have some good news. Anyone. I don't care who. Find me a buyer." "It's not good, Marcus," Jonathan Pierce's voice crackled back. "Everyone sees the debt. You're toxic. No one will touch you. Except maybe one." Marcus sat up, hope flaring. "Who? I'll take it. Who?" "A new private equity firm. Very aggressive, very private. They're called Pendleton Capital Ventures. They've been quietly asking questions. They might be interested in an acquisition." Marcus had never heard of them. "Pendleton. Like the blankets, I don't care. Set up the meeting. Offer them anything. Just get me in a room with them." "They don't do meetings like that, Bitter Marcus. They're sharks. Their CEO is a man named Robert Harrison. All communication goes through him, and he's already sent a preliminary offer." "What is it?" Marcus demanded, pacing. "It's low, Marcus. They're offering to assume all outstanding debt. In exchange, they get 100% of the company." Marcus stopped. "So, I get nothing. Zero. You get to walk away without $70 million in personal liability, which, by the way, you are absolutely on the hook for. It's the only offer on the table. In fact, it's the only offer you're likely to get. They want to meet Friday to finalize the due diligence." Marcus looked at a framed photo of himself and Serena on a red carpet. He looked at his beautiful office. He was 37 years old, and he was about to be completely wiped out. "Fine," he spat. "Book the meeting. I'll go. I'll meet this Harrison. I'll convince him. I'll convince him my brand, my name is worth something. I'll get an equity stake. I'll get something." He had no idea he was a lamb meticulously fattened, walking willingly to the slaughter. Mina sat in what her team called the war room. It was a secure, soundproofed chamber in the sub-basement of her brownstone, linked directly to the Pendleton Capital offices. The walls were a mosaic of data screens, and at the center was a long black conference table. "He's panicking," said David Chen, her head of acquisitions, a man she'd poached from Goldman Sachs. "He's trying to get a face-to-face with Mr. Harrison, hoping to charm his way into a better deal." Mina looked at the live data feed of Thorn Dynamics stock, which was now trading in pennies. "He believes his charm is an asset. Let him. Robert knows how to handle him." "Madam Chairwoman," Robert Harrison's voice chimed in from the head speaker. "Thorn's lawyer just confirmed he will be at our offices Friday at 10 a.m. for the final review. He still believes this is a negotiation." "It is not a negotiation," Mina said, her voice quiet. "It's a formality. David, what's the status on the debt?" "We own it," David said with a wolfish grin. "All of it. We spent the last 6 months buying it up from his creditors at pennies on the dollar. The banks were so desperate to get it off their books, they practically gave it to us. He's not in debt to the banks anymore, Mina. He's in debt to us. We are the creditor, the debtor, and the sole interested buyer. It's a closed loop." Mina nodded a slow, deliberate motion. "Perfect. Is the other matter handled?" David's grin widened. "The Serena Thorn file." "Oh yes. Her influencer agency, Vance Lifestyle, is leveraged to the hilt by the same bank that held Marcus's primary note. We acquired their debt as part of the package. As of this morning, we own her too. We just haven't told her yet." "Good," Mina said. "One thing at a time. The meeting on Friday. I will be there." There was a sudden silence in the room. Even Harrison on the speaker seemed surprised. "Mina, are you sure you've never attended an acquisition finalization? It's unnecessary. Your anonymity is your greatest asset." "It's necessary for this one, Robert," she said. She looked at a small framed photo on the edge of her desk. It was of Liam, age 4, missing his 2 front teeth and grinning. "He won't be negotiating with you, Robert. He'll be signing the papers, and then you will bring him to the main boardroom. I will be waiting." "As you wish," Harrison said. The next few days were for Marcus a fever dream of false hope. He practiced his speech in the mirror. He was Marcus Thorn, the innovator. He would make them see. He'd convince this Harrison person to keep him on as CEO. He'd get a golden parachute at least. Serena was, for the first time, not helpful. "This is so stressful, Marcus," she whined, filming herself with a new skin-firming wand for an Instagram post. "Are you sure we're going to be okay?" "My agent just called and said our spring campaign was under review." "What does that even mean? I'm Serena Thorn." "It means nothing, baby," Marcus said, straightening his tie, the knot suddenly feeling tight as a noose. "I'm going to fix it. I'm going to meet this Pendleton Capital Group and I'm going to fix it. This Harrison guy, he's just an old money suit. He won't know what hit him." On Friday morning, Marcus kissed Serena goodbye. She barely looked up from her phone, texting someone named Alexei about a potential collaboration in Dubai. Marcus stepped out of his gleaming and leased Maserati and into the lobby of the Pendleton Tower. It was a monument of glass and steel that dwarfed his own rented office space. He felt a sudden, unwelcome pang of inadequacy, which he quickly smothered with arrogance. He was escorted to a conference room on the 30th floor. Robert Harrison was waiting. He was exactly as Marcus had pictured, old grandfatherly, and Marcus assumed soft. "Mr. Thorn, a pleasure. I am Robert Harrison." Mr. Harrison, Marcus said, flashing his trademark smile, the one that had won him millions. Call me Marcus. I'm ready to discuss the future of Thorn Dynamics. Excellent, Harrison said, sliding a thick document across the table. The future is, as you know, with us. This is the final transfer agreement. We assume all debt. You sign over all assets, including intellectual property and brand trademarks. Please sign on page 4, 12, and 33. Marcus stared at him. Wait. We're not going to discuss terms. My role, I'm the face of this company. I am Thorn Dynamics. Harrison looked at him over the top of his spectacles. Mr. Thorn, with respect, Thorn Dynamics, is a failing entity with $70 million in debt. Its only value is in its core algorithm, which our team believes can be salvaged. You, your face, as you put it, has no asset value on our books. In fact, your personal brand is considered a liability. You will have no role. A liability? Marcus sputtered, his smile freezing. You are Mr. Thorn, what we call a founder failure. You built something and then you broke it with your ego. Now please sign, or we can simply call in the debt we hold. All $70 million of it. Today. At which point we will seize the assets and pursue you in personal bankruptcy. The choice is yours. Marcus's blood ran cold. He had never not once considered that they held the debt. He thought they were just a buyer. He was trapped. Utterly, completely trapped. His hands were shaking. The pen felt slick in his grip. He looked at Harrison, who was watching him with the placid disinterest of a biologist observing a specimen. Where do I sign? Marcus whispered. He signed. He signed away his company, his name, his entire life's work, for nothing. Good, Harrison said, collecting the pages. Now there is one final step. Our chairwoman likes to personally meet the founders of the companies we acquire. A formality, if you'll follow me. Marcus, numb and hollow, followed. A golden parachute. Maybe. A consulting fee. He was desperate for any scrap. Harrison led him up a private elevator to the 50th floor. The penthouse floor. The doors opened onto a vast, stunning boardroom with a 360-degree view of Seattle. The entire city was laid out before him. A long obsidian table dominated the room. At the far end, facing the window, sat a single figure. A woman silhouetted against the bright morning light. Mr. Thorn, Harrison said, his voice booming in the quiet room. May I present the chairwoman and sole owner of Pendleton Capital Ventures, Ms. Mina Hayes. The chair swiveled. Marcus Thorn looked into the face of the pregnant wife he had abandoned 4 years ago. But this was not the woman he'd left. The weeping, broken woman in the lavender-scented spare room was gone. This woman was sculpted from ice and steel. Her gaze was level, her expression unreadable, and she was wearing a dark blue power suit that probably cost more than his car. Hello, Marcus, Mina said, her voice as cool and clear as the glass surrounding them. It's been a while. Please have a seat. We have so much to discuss. Marcus Thorn's world did not just tilt. It inverted, shattered, and dissolved into a deafening static. His first idiotic thought was, this is a prank. His second was, she's a secretary, a high-level assistant. This is a joke. She's Mina. He stammered, his voice a full octave higher than usual. He tried for a laugh, but it came out like a cough. What is this? What are you doing here? Mina leaned forward, folding her hands on the polished black table. I'm here, Marcus, because I own this building. I own this table, and as of—" She glanced at her watch, a slim, elegant Patek Philippe. "3 minutes ago, I own you." Harrison stepped forward, his grandfatherly demeanor gone, replaced by the sharp edge of a corporate executioner. "Mr. Thorne, you have been addressing Ms. Mina Hayes, our chairwoman. She is the EH on all internal documentation. She founded Pendleton Capital Ventures." Founded? Marcus's mind was failing to connect the dots. You had nothing. I gave you $50,000. You were living with Chloe. You did. Mina agreed, her voice dangerously pleasant. It was a fresh start fund, I believe your lawyer called it. But you seem to be forgetting my great-uncle Arthur. Arthur Pendleton. He wasn't a fan of yours, Marcus. He left me his hobby. That hobby was Pendleton Capital. The name. Pendleton. It hit Marcus like a physical blow. The blood drained from his face and his ears began to roar. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not possible." "Oh, it's very possible," Mina said. "You just never bothered to look back. You were so busy building your new life, you never once wondered what happened to the old one. You just assumed what faded away, disappeared, became a sad little single mother, living on state-mandated child support." She stood up, the picture of power, and walked slowly around the table toward him. She moved with a confidence that made him shrink back in his chair. "For 4 years, Marcus, I've watched you," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, yet it filled the room. "I watched you dilute your own stock to pay for Serena's birthday parties. I watched you take on ruinous debt for a product line you knew was flawed, all to impress people you don't even like. And I watched my team buy up every last piece of that debt. Every late-night loan, every desperate bond. They all belong to me." She stopped directly in front of him. He had to crane his neck to look up at her. "You called me a burden," she said, her voice devoid of heat, a cold, simple statement of fact. "You said I was a vessel. You said I had, what was it, lost my fire." She smiled, but it was a terrifying expression. It held no warmth, only triumph. "The truth, Marcus, is you were always the burden. I was the one carrying you. The algorithm that started your entire company. I wrote 80% of that code. And in the fine print of the intellectual property agreement you just signed, you handed it and all its derivatives back to me. The one valuable thing your company had left is now mine." Marcus was hyperventilating. His vision was tunneling. The room felt suddenly unbearably hot. You did this for revenge," Mina laughed, a real, genuine, and utterly chilling laugh. "Revenge," she said. "Oh, Marcus, you think you're that important? You think I spent 4 years of my life plotting to destroy you? Don't flatter yourself. This wasn't revenge. This was pest control, a hostile takeover, a simple acquisition." She leaned in closer, and his senses were overwhelmed. She smelled of expensive perfume, something dark and complex like sandalwood and victory. "You were a loose end," she whispered. "My son's last name is Hayes. My name is Hayes. The name Thorne is a stain I've been meaning to wipe clean for a very long time. This wasn't revenge, Marcus. It was just good business." That was the moment he broke. The idea that he wasn't even worthy of her hatred, that this entire, elaborate, 4-year financial execution was just good business to her. It was more than his colossal ego could bear. He made a sound, a strangled, guttural noise. His $1,200 Italian leather briefcase slipped from his nerveless fingers and clattered to the floor. He gasped. I can't. He clutched at his chest, his impeccably tailored suit suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. He wasn't having a heart attack. He was having a humiliation attack. His entire reality, the one built on his own perceived superiority, had been systematically and surgically dismantled by the woman he'd discarded as messy. He collapsed, not in a dramatic cinematic faint, but in a pathetic, clumsy heap. He crumpled against the base of the chair, wheezing his face a mask of sweat and terror. Mina looked down at him, her expression unchanged. She didn't offer a hand. She didn't call for a doctor. She simply stepped back and smoothed the front of her jacket. "Robert," she said, turning to her CEO, who was watching with quiet satisfaction. "Yes, Madam Chairwoman. Please have security escort Mr. Thorne from the premises. He's trespassing." "Immediately," Harrison said. 2 uniformed security officers entered the room. They didn't ask questions. They simply and efficiently hauled the sobbing, hyperventilating Marcus Thorne to his feet, one under each arm. "You can't do this!" he shrieked, his last shred of dignity gone. "Mina, please, think of what we had, Mina." Mina had already turned her back. She was looking out at her city, at the skyline she now commanded. "Remove him," she said, and the doors swished shut, cutting off his desperate cries. Marcus was deposited onto the curb outside the Pendleton Tower. The drizzle of the Seattle morning was cold on his sweat-drenched shirt. People in business suits walked past, their eyes sliding over the disheveled man, weeping on the pavement, and then, as polite society dictates, looking quickly away. He fumbled for his phone. He had to call someone. His lawyer. Serena. Anyone. He called Serena. It went straight to voicemail. "Serena, baby. You won't believe what happened. That witch. Mina, she bought the company. He sobbed. She owns everything. Call me back. We have to do something." He called his lawyer, Jonathan Pierce. "Marcus." Pierce's voice was different. It wasn't friendly. It was cold. "I was just about to call you. I've received a cease and desist from Harrison and Stone. I can no longer represent you. What, you're my lawyer? No, Marcus. My firm was retained by Thorne Dynamics, and as Thorne Dynamics now has a new owner, she is my client. And her first instruction was to terminate your relationship with the firm, citing conflict of interest. My second instruction is to inform you that you are to have no contact with any former employees, partners, or assets of the company, effective immediately. You're working for her. I work for the company, Marcus, and you do not. Goodbye." The line clicked dead. Marcus sat on the curb, the rain plastering his hair to his skull. He was in a single hour, utterly alone. He tried Serena again. Voicemail. He took a cab back to the lavish condo he shared with her. He'd have to sell it. No, she would have to sell it. The lease was in his name. Everything was in his name. He stumbled into the apartment, calling her name. "Serena, we have to pack. We have to go." The apartment was quiet, but it wasn't empty. In the master bedroom, Serena's walk-in closet, usually a chaotic explosion of designer labels, was half empty. Her jewelry case was open and vacant. On the bed in a pristine white envelope was a note. It wasn't even a letter. It was her engagement ring, the 6-carat cushion-cut diamond he'd bought with a line of credit from the company, and a single slip of paper. Marcus. My agent just called. My contract with Vance Lifestyle was terminated by the new parent company. They said I violated a morals clause. And then Alexei called, from Dubai. He said he just got an email from the new head of my agency, a Ms. Hayes. She bought the entire agency, Marcus. She's freezing my assets. She's cancelling my campaigns. She's ruining me. I can't be with a man who lets this happen. I'm going to Dubai. Alexei is going to help me sort this out. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. S. He stared at the ring. She hadn't even called. She'd heard the news and had simply evacuated, like a rat leaving a ship that was already at the bottom of the ocean. He sank onto the edge of the bed, the gaudy, overpriced symbol of his betrayal cold in his palm. He had lost his company. He had lost his mistress. He had lost his reputation. He had traded a diamond for a piece of glass, and now the glass had shattered, and the diamond was sitting in a tower owning the world. He looked around the empty, silent room, a monument to a life of hollow surfaces, and for the first time, Marcus Thorne understood what it truly meant to have nothing. The news hit the financial world like a thunderclap. The Seattle Shadow revealed billionaire Mina Hayes ousts ex-husband in shocking hostile takeover. The story was irresistible. It had betrayal sex money and the most satisfying karmic justice the tech world had seen in decades. The blogs and papers were ruthless. They dug up Marcus and Serena's obnoxious Instagram posts, contrasting them with the quiet, dignified silence from Mina Hayes. They found old college photos of a bright-eyed Mina working side by side with a younger Marcus, and the narrative was set. The king built by his queen had exiled her only for her to return and conquer his empty kingdom. Marcus Thorne was a laughingstock. He was a meme. He was founder failure. He was last seen moving his personal items out of a storage unit, his face shielded from a single persistent paparazzo. Mina, on the other hand, gave one and only one statement. She didn't give it to a financial paper. She gave it to a Women in STEM blog. Pendleton Capital Ventures acquired Thorne Dynamics for its core technology, which we believe was deeply mismanaged. We intend to restructure the company, salvage the IP, and refocus on innovation. This was a business decision, plain and simple. We wish Mr. Thorne the best in his future endeavors. The cold, clinical professionalism of the statement was to those who knew the story more brutal than any insult. She didn't even acknowledge their past, and restructure she did. The first thing she did was rename it. Thorne Dynamics was dissolved. The new entity was called Hayes Pendleton Labs. The second thing she did was call a company-wide meeting. The remaining employees, terrified they were all about to be fired, gathered in the main atrium. Mina walked onto the stage. It was the first time most of them had ever seen her. She was not the monster they'd been led to expect. She was calm, focused, and spoke with the authority of someone who knows exactly what she's doing. "Good morning," she said. "I am Mina Hayes. As you know, I am the new owner of this company. I am also, some of you may remember, one of its original architects. I helped write the first line of code this company was built on in a garage 10 years ago." A murmur went through the crowd. "This company lost its way," she continued. "It became obsessed with image and not with innovation. It prioritized marketing over engineering. That ends today. The smart jewelry division is dissolved. The marketing budget is being cut by 90%. All of that capital is being rerouted into R&D. We are going back to basics, building the best data compression software in the world. She looked out at the faces, the tired engineers, the overworked admins. I know what hostile takeover means, she said. It means layoffs, and there will be some. Anyone in a vanity position, your time here is done. This included Marcus's personal assistant, Janice, who was let go an hour later. But for those of you who build, for the coders, the engineers, the designers, your jobs are not only safe, your salaries are being increased by 15%, effective immediately. The culture of fear and flash is over. We are now a culture of innovation. Welcome to Hayes Pendleton Labs. Now let's get to work. The atrium was silent for a beat, then erupted in applause. Mina watched them, a small, private smile on her face. This wasn't revenge. This was restoration. She wasn't just tearing Marcus's empty house down. She was using the materials to build a fortress, a legacy for her son. As for Serena's modeling agency, Mina didn't destroy it. She gutted it. She fired the predatory agents, installed a new female-led board, and changed its entire charter to focus on talent development and financial literacy for young models, ensuring they would never be as vulnerable as Serena had been. Serena herself, after a failed attempt to sue, was last heard of bartending in Dubai, her influencer career over. Mina had taken all the poisoned parts of her past and had, with systematic logical precision, detoxified them. 5 years later. The penthouse office on the 50th floor of the Pendleton Tower no longer felt like a boardroom. It was Mina's private office. One wall was still glass overlooking the city, but the others were covered in books, whiteboards full of complex equations, and cool children's art. Framed crayon drawings of Mummy's Tower and a stick figure, Liam, sat next to financial awards and patents. The door swished open, and a 9-year-old Liam Hayes ran in his school backpack, slung over one shoulder. Mom. Guess what I got the lead in the school play? I'm the protagonist. Mina laughed, swiveling in her chair to scoop him up in a hug. That's my boy. The protagonist, I always knew it. What's protagonist mean again? He asked, burying his face in her neck. It means you're the hero, she said, kissing the top of his head. You're the center of the story. Cool. Robert Harrison, now happily semi-retired but still on the board, poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt, Mina, but you have a visitor. Someone not on the schedule. Mina's good humor faded slightly. Who is it? It's Marcus Thorne. Mina froze for a split second. She hadn't seen or heard his name outside of her lawyer's do not contact order reports in years. He's at the front desk, Harrison said, his voice laced with disapproval. He says he's a delivery driver for Postmates. He said he has a food delivery for you. Mina looked at Liam, who was now busy at a small table building a complex Lego creation. He didn't even know his father's name. She felt nothing. Not hatred, not anger, not even pity, just a vast empty distance. He was a stranger, a ghost. I didn't order any food, Robert, she said simply. I know, it's a ham sandwich. He's just standing there. He looks old, Mina thought for a moment. She looked at her son, the true center of her universe. She looked at the empire she had built. And she looked at the door. Tell security to send him away, Robert, she said, her voice soft. "He's at the wrong address. There's no one here by that name." "Very good, Madam Chairwoman." He smiled and was gone. Mina turned back to her son. "Hey, protagonist, how about we finish up here and go get some real food, I'm thinking. The best pizza in Seattle." "Yeah," Liam cheered. Mina Hayes stood, took her son's hand, and walked out of her office. She didn't look back at the window, didn't spare a thought for the man on the pavement, 50 floors below, a man who had collapsed a second time when the security guard told him, "Sorry, sir, no one by that name works in this building." Marcus Thorne had been erased, not by revenge, but by irrelevance. Mina and Liam walked into the elevator, their laughter echoing in the polished steel. She had her past, her present, and her future all in one. She was the architect. She was the hero. She was the center of her own story. And it was a story that was just beginning. And so Mina Hayes proved that the greatest revenge isn't loud, it's silent. It's not about tearing someone down. It's about building yourself up so high that they can't even cast a shadow on you. Marcus Thorne didn't just lose his company. He lost his legacy. He became a footnote in the story of the woman he'd tried to throw away. Mina didn't just get her comeback. She built an empire from the rubble of his betrayal, proving that a burden can become a boss and a vessel can become a vanguard. The ultimate justice is living a life so full and successful that your detractors become nothing more than a bad memory. What did you think of Mina's ultimate comeback? Was it the coldest revenge or just the smartest business? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of justice and vindication, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to see a true boss in action. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories every single week. We all have a comeback story in us. What's yours?